What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something that I did recently, which is I built my first knight. Well, kind of. The thing is, in the video before this one, I talked a little bit about why it takes me so long to paint things, and that involved talking about my crusade a little bit, where I told just a tiny little fib. Because, you see, I didn't have 1750 points of AdMech specifically, I had 1780. Specifically, 1,500 points of AdMech and 280 points worth of Imperial Knights in the form of 2 armatures. So I did technically build my first knight, but is it like a real knight? Not really. It's not the one I showed you that I got for Christmas. I picked these up later because I figured that I had to rush to get 250 points painted and on the battlefield, and all I could do was have time to build and quickly battle-ready paint up 2 armatures. It's just 2 models. I could handle that, but another 250 points was just too much for me to handle at that points level for what I was running in AdMech. So I had to quickly come up with a color scheme for these knights and an effect that I wanted to do. Now, I did already luckily have some lore for my knight house, which was helpful because that justified a lot of the color choices I made. Speaking of those color choices, this knight house is all about being super tragic edgelords. They're the goth kids who sit in the corner of the cafeteria and no one likes them and they don't like anyone. So I knew that black was going to be front and center in the color scheme, but I wanted to kick it up a notch because just black, everybody's doing that. What else could I do to set these knights apart with especially their like large surface armor plates? Now this is where I get to delve into some other aspects of my life that I like to enjoy and can take inspiration from. One thing that you may not know about me is that I am actually super into fashion. For a few short months of my life, I was a part-time model, and before I gained some COVID weight. And then from that experience, I grew really into just clothing and fabrics and accessorizing and all of that stuff. And that is knowledge that I still carry with me to this day. So I suddenly had the idea for a certain texture I was looking for, one that I had seen in things like velvet jackets, patterned velvets, and some tuxedos in the pants legs when there's a sort of like stripe of black. Now, in both of these examples, both of the colors on these materials are black, but they're visually distinguished from each other by their texture. So I wanted to see if I could bring that into the world of miniature hobbying, because while I think there's a lot of really interesting experimentation going on in terms of color and things of that nature in the miniature hobby world, this is an effect that I have never seen before in all of my years of seeing people paint really cool minis. I was not a fool this time. I did not ruin minis, so you don't have to. I actually conducted some proper test procedures. I started out with some spoons, plastic spoons that I had primed matte black, because these things cost like, I don't know, a nickel for each one or something like that. And I got to work. Now this was a matte black primer, and that is a matte black color that I wanted as my base, so I just got into it with some pure gloss varnish. By the way, on these spoons you can see I already was doing some testing with blue. I'll get to that a little bit later. So I started pouring some gloss varnish onto my palette, dry palette this time because I was just testing things out. I didn't really need it to have an extended lifetime or anything like that. And importantly, I did not thin it down, because even though I was going to be doing some freehanding, spoilers, I wanted to make sure that the varnish would not run anywhere. I wanted it to be fully contained to where I put it onto the plastic. So, totally unthinned, I gingerly took a couple of test strokes onto my spoon. And lo and behold, it immediately had the exact desired effect I wanted it to. The glossy effect stayed glossy, the matte effect stayed matte, there was no drippage, no runniness, nothing like that. Everything was contained exactly where it should be. I did a couple of more test sweeps on the spoon and decided to graduate to my other spoon to try and practice some actual freehanding. Now, this was my first time freehanding on a miniature in any meaningful way, and I didn't exactly know what I was doing, but I do have plenty of experience in the visual arts in general. I've been drawing, digitally painting, and even doing some traditional painting for the past 25 years. So you could say I have a little bit of experience as I took to this spoon. And I tried to do a mix of naturalistic patterns and also some more geometric ones to see what worked, what was easy, what was difficult, what are the challenges, how can I overcome them. As expected, the naturalistic patterns came across a little bit easier on the spoon than the geometric ones. There's a lot more control and a lot more forgiveness if you make a mistake doing something that's supposed to look somewhat natural. Just because organic shapes often don't contain mistakes, but they have things that aren't shaped to a platonic ideal of what that shape should look like. There are twists and turns and things that go kind of unexpected, and that's how we get these beautiful kind of organic shapes. Their beauty comes in their asymmetry and their wildness. So it was a lot easier to make a good effect with those shapes. I didn't do it perfectly, of course, but that is exactly what practice is for. What I did really enjoy and found out was that the direction that I was freehanding in mattered immensely. Always be pulling, ABP, with your brush. You don't want to push with a brush when you're freehanded. You probably don't want to be pushing with your brush at all, but especially when you're freehanding, pulling the brush along your canvas, in this case the back of a spoon, gives you way more control than pushing does. Pushing can splay the brush hairs, it can cause all sorts of unexpected behavior and lead to more obvious and glaring mistakes. I learned this pretty quickly when I immediately felt a loss of control, accidentally trying to do a spiral, and decided to do only pulls from that point forward as much as I could help myself. Of course, I still made mistakes here and there. I am, surprisingly, only human. But with that out of the way, I think this was a total success of an effect. It was everything I wanted it to be, and it did exactly what I wanted, exactly how I wanted it to. And even after it dried, I checked back the next day and the effect was still perfect. So I got my effect, I got my special sauce, but that's not all that is in a model. I still needed a color scheme. And this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. All black is certainly a look. It's one I've done many times, but I don't think it works very well in the miniature world just because we need some of that contrast. So I look to a second source of inspiration for me, something else that I enjoy in my life. If you know me from way back, I'm talking like the channel I had before this one. I'm not even sure anyone here knows about that. You might know that I am a big fan of Korean pop. I lived in the nation of South Korea for about 4 years of my life, and during that time picked up skill in the language and a joy for their music. So I took a look, and I saw a video from the girl group A-Pink doing a performance of their song Dilemma, and the outfits that they had chosen, or rather their stylist had chosen, the makeup, the hair, the everything, had this amazing kind of regal look to it that I thought would look awesome for an Imperial Knight because of that sort of regal appearance. If you want an example of what I'm talking about, take a look. And that's about all of the song that I can play without getting demonetized and my channel bombed into the 9 hells. But you get what I'm seeing here. These navy blues, these blacks, a little bit of gold, a little bit of white. It was the perfect mix of colors that would supplement my mostly black Knight Legion with, I think, perfectly getting those other dark colors in with the navy, getting those bright spots of white just to pick out a couple of things, and some nice gold trim to tie it all together. Truly the definition of nobility and regality. So that is the scheme that I started to paint my armatures, and I didn't finish painting them because, again, I was just speed painting them to a battle ready standard. But with the combination of this effect in my back pocket with the gloss varnish, plus this color scheme that I think is going to complement that effect really well and lead to some interesting textures and interesting colors, I believe that these knights are well on their way to becoming truly finished and truly pretty freaking sweet for my first larger scale models like this. And I'm even more excited for how the knight proper turns out once I eventually build, paint, and do everything associated with that one. But that is all for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And if you're interested in seeing more, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single one. Other than that, throw me a like, it always helps out the channel, and let me know, what sort of real life inspirations do you use in your miniature painting? I'd love to know in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.